Gumption, defined as initiative, aggressiveness, resourcefulness, courage, spunk, guts, common sense, and shrewdness. Welcome to the podcast. This is Stories of Gumption with your host, Ryan Lee. Hey there, everybody. Welcome to episode number 8 of the Stories of Gumption podcast, having conversations with entrepreneurs, creative thinkers, and in my opinion, just really, really impressive people. So before we get to that, we have 2 sponsors. Yes, so things are moving up in the Stories of Gumption world. We had one sponsor for a few episodes here, but now we have 2. So the first one, you've been listening to the podcast, you probably heard of them already, but Open Gate Farmstead. A stone's throw away from the mighty Ausable River, Open Gate Farmstead is a first-generation farm specializing in free-range poultry. That's a thing now. Free-range poultry, pasture-raised pork, and seasonal produce. The farm is run on a simple principle. Happy animals make the healthiest and tastiest product. You will find their chickens eating bugs on pasture, their pigs enjoying a mud bath or some acorns, and if you're lucky, the geese will be enjoying the pond. To watch and experience the Open Gate Farmstead journey, check them out on YouTube page, Open Gate Farmstead, or check them out on Facebook and Instagram. Reach out to them on social media and try the Farm Fresh difference. And if you haven't heard, if you're a Gumption listener and you want to try some of their eggs, they will give you $1 off your first order. Just let them know you heard about them from the Gumption podcast, and they'll hook you up. Maybe they'll even give you some duck eggs. Those are my favorite. We are also sponsored by, slight drum roll, Kavanaugh Realty. I'm really pumped to have Kavanaugh Realty sponsoring the Stories of Gumption podcast. They are a local independent real estate company helping neighbors buy and sell their homes. Pretty simple mission, but they crush it. Hashtag local matters. And I just want to put in a little personal note. I think we're very blessed in the North Country, Greater Plattsburgh region to have a ton of very capable and excellent real estate companies to choose from. But my wife and I, we bought our home with Kavanaugh Realty, and it was a phenomenal experience. Galen Trombley went above and beyond for us. He actually helped us late night hour, put together an offer, and secured the home that we're in today. So certainly very big thank you to Kavanaugh Realty. Now, the big moment. Here it is. Episode 8 of the Stories of Gumption podcast. I am with Hannah Provost. I am super pumped to have Hannah here. She is a partner at Lamanto & Company. She's a past chair of the United Way of Adirondack Region campaign. She won an award from the North Country Chamber of Commerce in 2014 as Volunteer of the Year. In 2015, she was recognized by the Girl Scouts of the Northeast region as a woman of distinction, and she is a past president of the Adirondack Young Professionals, short name ADKYP. You'll hear more about that. So, Hannah, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much. It's good to be here.
Awesome. Super pumped to have you here. So I think I was thinking about it, and obviously we're friends, but I was like, where did I really meet Hannah? And I was thinking, and I'm like, man, maybe it was through ADKYP, I think.
And I think it was. We might have met in passing before. We run in the same circles, but we really got to know each other through ADKYP.
Crazy cool story. Yeah, so you were the president of that organization now, and I think that was 2013.
Yeah,
I think
so.
Yeah, so here we are, 2019, and now you're looking across the mic, and I'm on my 3rd year of being president of that organization. Interesting times. I finally announced that I'm going to be retiring But yeah.
I'll lend you my retirement speech.
Yeah.
You recycle it. They won't remember it.
Yeah. How was your experience with 80KYP?
80KYP was a really great experience for me overall. I think that it was the perfect place for me really early in my career. I got thrown in and said, go do something. And so the something I found was 80KYP. It was a time when they needed some leadership. And so I came on first as the secretary and eventually became the president of the organization. I got used to running board meetings and reaching out to people to try to organize events, meeting with people that were complete strangers to me to talk about coming into the area. And it just gave me a lot of skills that I was lacking at that point in my career. It was like a masterclass in it in like a really short period of time. It also found me banging my head against the wall plenty of times.
I was waiting for that part of it. Yeah.
Well, now, years down the road, I can say that was a really good thing. I mean, things get frustrating during times. So I've kind of learned how to deal with it and move on a high note. And it's been wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the organization ebbs and flows generally. I think the mission, attracting and retaining young people to the greater Plattsburgh area, is a good one. And there's a lot of other young professional organizations that try to do that too. But yeah, it's an interesting organization because, like we were talking before the podcast, I mean, you're asking young people, oftentimes graduates from right out of college, to step up into a level of maturity and experience that they could not possibly have had yet.
Exactly. And that they're not going to get anywhere else.
Right.
You can't just walk into the Rotary and say, I want to be president now. I mean, It doesn't work that way. So It doesn't usually happen for people in their careers yet at that point. And even if you try to do it for free on the side, people aren't going to give you that level of responsibility. And so I think 80KYP has a really core role to this region and like helping build the next class of leaders.
Yeah.
I mean, look at us.
Yeah. Well, look at you, crushing it. Partner at Lamento and Company. We'll get into that. That's really exciting for you, and I'm glad we're going to have a chance to talk about that. First off, what is your definition of gumption? I'm curious. Like, I know that it's kind of been a fun thing to talk about gumption with the guests that I've had on so far. And our last episode with Amy Kretzer, she got into a lot of cool perspectives on what gumption is to her. What's gumption to you?
So to me, gumption is really kind of falling down and getting back up anyway. Maybe doing things a little bit before you're really ready for it and just saying, I'm doing it anyway. This is what's happening. So that's, I think, how you really move your life forward in a lot of different ways. On the personal side, on the career side, gumption is saying, I may not be ready for this role yet, and I'm probably going to fail, but I'm going to go ahead and give it a try anyway. I
like it. So, next question. What's your story of gumption?
Yeah. Getting ready for this, I kind of thought about all the different failures that I've had in life, because that's kind of where it starts from, right? Like, that's kind of step one, and then you move on to the rest. And there have been a lot, and I've been really lucky that some of the most devastating things for me have turned into the life that I live now, that I love. Like, it couldn't have happened without all the failures first. But thinking about things that I felt like really personally responsible, really big failures, I kind of think back to as a backstory. I did well in high school. I was in the Honor Society. I was in AP classes. I was working, and so I kind of had my own money, my own car, and like life was going my way. It was pretty great.
Knowing you today, that doesn't surprise me. Yeah.
So I get out of high school. I'm going to UVM. It was like I applied to like 5 colleges, and I got into all of them, right? So
nice.
Just start with a little bit of a brag.
Yeah,
so that you can understand the rest of the story.
Okay. Yep.
So I get to UVM, and I hate it. I just hate everything about it. The party culture was really a shock to me and not pleasant. The classes were big. I felt like I was just kind of lost. And so by the second semester of my freshman year, I had moved off campus. And by the end of freshman year, I was done. I was totally out of it. And
it just wasn't working for you.
No. And
Did you grow up in the North Country? Sorry to interrupt, but
that's fine. No, I grew up in Connecticut, but my parents are both from Burlington.
Oh,
Yeah.
I get the connection now. Okay.
Yeah. And so I had always visited and thought, oh, I'm comfortable here. I like it here. I'm not home, but I'm still somewhere that I know a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I was an environmental studies major. And so what better place to study environmental studies? Not environmental science, because that's kind of hard stuff.
Right, right.
But what better place to kind of study save the world economics, as my friends called it, than UVM? It was perfect. And my parents both have master's degrees. It was like a sure thing. So I get to the point where I'm dropping out of UVM. And as a consolation, I apply for this job at a kids' clothing store, and I walk in to try to be like a assistant manager, and they're like, you know what, you can just run the whole thing. You can be the general manager. I was like, yes, all right, this is my bounce back. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Okay. All
it's
right.
like the consolation prize. I was like, all right, well, if I'm not going to be able to be like the college grad that I thought I'd be, at least I can do this while I'm trying to figure things out. So I got really, really into it. I developed an inventory system. I hired my own staff. I was doing the scheduling and the ordering and doing sales and all kinds of things. I was loving it. It was like such a big part of my identity that I had come back from this place and was crushing it. I was so happy.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was great until I get to work one day and my new boss walks in and spends 2 hours telling me what a bad job I'm doing and then fires me.
No.
So as it happened, we were also moving that weekend. And so I came home and I was like, all right, well, flunked out of college.
Well,
not with grades, but I was out.
College
dropout, fired. What now? Like I had no concept of what to do next. So I needed to pay rent.
Yeah. How'd you pull yourself out of that? I can't even imagine what would be going through my head at that time.
Yeah. I got to, I needed rent and I knew that I really didn't want any more rejections at that point. And so I went to my local Kmart and applied. And I do not hold anyone who's worked at Kmart in retail in low regard. It's a really hard job, but that was a low point for me. I'm like, okay, I went from having all these aspirations of, going to college and saving the world. And now I'm going to go work at Kmart. This is my only plan right now.
Wow.
So yeah, it was tough. So I went to go work at Kmart. I ended up getting promoted to the point where I was an office manager and things really started to turn around. I think I kind of had to get to a bit of a low point for things to start changing for me. Got a promotion. I met my husband, Brad, there, which was wonderful. And within a year, I was working at a bank instead of in retail, better hours, more room for advancement. And it really kind of started my career path, but it was totally backwards.
Which is where I met you when you were working at a bank. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, at that point in time, I looked up to you. I was like, wow, Hannah can do no wrong. Like Hannah's crushing it. She's a branch manager at one point at a bank. And I was like, wow, that's awesome. I never would have known that. That takes a lot to pull yourself up out of that.
It was tough. I lost a lot of self-respect in that process and had to start over and build it again and realize that nope, my life is not over. We can move forward. And a lot of the things that are in my life now are because of that. I mean, my career came out of that. My relationship came out of that. It ended up being a blessing, but it did not feel that way at the time at all.
And you went back and completed your associates, then completed your bachelor's, if I'm correct. Yep. Yeah. And then you are now a partner with Andrew Lamonto at Lamonto and Company. That's amazing. I mean, that's crazy. That's cool. That's just like, you mentioned before the podcast, you're working towards another certification.
Yes, I'm working on my certified financial planner designation, and it's been a long road. I started that path way back at the bank. That's kind of what spurred me to get my bachelor's degree, because at that point I was kind of an adult paying bills, and I was like, oh my gosh, college is really expensive. If I'm going to go back, there's got to be a really good reason for it, because otherwise I'm not doing it. I'm not going to pay, take on that debt. And so back then I decided I wanted to be a CFP, and I went back and finished my bachelor's degree and then took another 18 months worth of courses. My family didn't see me for most of this winter because I was studying. I'd go in at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning to the office and study.
Wow.
And then I took the exam in March, so I'll find out soon. Fingers crossed.
What advice would you give to somebody who's on the fence about something like that? They're like, man, I kind of want to do this, but that's going to be so hard. Like, I imagine you had to change your entire daily, weekly routine to accomplish that.
Yeah. I really think whenever you're about to make a big jump like that, give yourself time to sit with it. Like really, really sit with it every day. Be thinking about, is this something that would be fulfilling to me? Don't think so much about what it's going to cost you, like either in time or money or effort, but think about like, can I see this for myself? And I got to the point where that was just like when I looked at myself in the future, that had happened. And so I had to do it.
Yeah.
You have to go ahead with it at that point.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people struggle too with like the decision of, is this right for me? Is this my right? How'd you know for sure this was what you had to do? This was what you were meant to do?
So that started when I was still working at Glens Falls. I had just gotten my Series 6 license and my 63. And so that's kind of like the training wheels of being an advisor.
Yeah.
There's some really great advisors out there who keep that designation and kind of stay there. But it was the entry level, and I had been in a lot of different positions in my life, career-wise. And that was the first one that was like, this is me. It wasn't just the next step. It wasn't like, okay, well, this will be something to do for a while, or it'll be more money or anything like that. It really just felt so different. It had connected. It was like, this is my life. This is what I want to do.
I'm with you. And we've talked before the podcast too about my recent change, a little over a year now, celebrating a little over a year. But yeah, I'm with you. When you finally click on something, and for me that happened to be commercial insurance.
Right. Like, who would have thought, right?
Like, if you asked me that in high school, I've been like, blah, gross. Like insurance, like all the stereotypes of, like the sleazy insurance salesman. Everybody has heard that phrase. But I've found the right agency that really supports me. It's a great company, and I finally feel like I'm in charge of my own destiny.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that's what you found too. And
exactly
like
right.
when it clicks, you're
you
like,
just know.
You know.
How frustrating of an
It's
answer
hard.
is that?
It's still hard.
Yeah.
It's super hard. I wake up every day. It's hard. But at least for me, I nerd out on it now. And I think you have to nerd out on what you're doing.
And also be okay if you're not there yet. Like, it's okay to be in a career and keep progressing. Don't push it and try to like seek out your destiny when it's just not the right time. It's all right for it to take longer. I didn't know that that's what I wanted to do until I was 25. Maybe when I turn 45, I'll decide that there's some other great calling that I have. But there's a lot of good things that you can have in your life before you have that great epiphany. Like, this is it. This is what I want to do. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know some people who have done that, like after retirement. Handful of people. Just they've clicked. Like, they're like, oh, I'm going to take my retirement. I'm going to invest it into this. I know some people who have started wineries. I had the opportunity to interview these two guys. They are doing a drone like surveillance business.
Oh yeah.
And like they're both retired, and now they're doing it's like this huge thing. Anyhow, I digress. But you never know.
It just hits
There's
you.
chapters.
Exactly.
There's chapters. Yeah, that's cool. So another interesting chapter for you that I think we could probably talk all day about, because I'm just curious, and I think everybody should be more curious or understanding of how it works and who's right for it. But foster parenting.
Yeah.
Tell me your backstory leading up to that.
Sure.
And what, and kind of your experience with foster parenting.
Sure. So probably at this point, 6 or 7 years ago, my husband and I were trying to start a family, and it just wasn't happening. Like, I know now that there are a lot of other people who have gone through that, and it's like heartbreaking. It's like, okay, well, your body's just failing you at this point. It's not working. So pretty early into that process, I thought, I am not going to do like any work to try to force this to happen biologically. And we started exploring foster care. We're really lucky in Clinton County that there's a great community right here that will guide you through it. And the agency is located right in Plattsburgh. And so things are different state by state and county by county. And so you do have to collect your own information on that. But we took the classes. It's like a 30-hour class that you take to become a foster parent. And
really?
Yeah, it's long.
Wow.
10 weeks, 3 hours a week, probably 100 pages of paperwork that has to get filled out. They go through everything. They fingerprint you. You have to go get a tuberculosis test.
Holy smokes.
Yeah. Address is going back 28 years. I was 24 at the time. So I literally had to put the address of the hospital, Brigham and Women's,
wow,
on the application. But they delve into every piece of your life. And at the same time, they almost kind of give you a little bit of marriage counseling or just counseling about why you want to have a family, what you think might work for you, what kind of supports you have. And for us, never having been parents before, figuring out what is our parenting style? What values do we have as a family? It was really, really valuable. It's still something to this day I can't believe is offered by the state of New York, something that was just so meaningful to us on a personal level and got us really ready to be foster parents.
How do you know if you're the right person for something like that? I mean, I'm not at a point in my life where I'm necessarily ready to be a parent, but certainly someday.
Right.
And I know that my parents would love to have grandkids, but you never know what life's going to deal you, what kind of cards who's right for that.
Who's right for that? As many foster parents as I've met, there's a different type of personality that's ready for it. And so I think first and foremost, though, is being able to put your ego aside. And so not everybody can do that, and that's okay. But as the foster parent, you are not the star of that show, of that whole process. It's really all about the child. And in every case, when the child first enters care, the first goal is return to parent. And so you're there to support that whole process. So where I've seen people fail at foster parenting is that they can't put that aside. They feel like this is me. This is, I'm starting a family. This is going to go the way that I want it to. And it's the legal system and it's people's lives and it's just messy. And so if you can roll with the punches and kind of let yourself not be put first, I think that's the more successful stories that I see.
There's a crazy need for foster parents in the Adirondack region. I see it, the announcements from John Bernardi at the United Way all the time. And I'm not ready, right? But how can I help him? How can I help the children that need that help?
So there are a couple of ways. The first I would say is if you know a family that's struggling where the kids are in danger of going into foster care. So it could be that there's a drug issue. It could be that there's mental health needs going on. It could be that the family is just struggling. There's stress. There's maybe divorce is happening, whatever it is. Stepping in to support that family so that they don't have to put their kids into foster care is so, so helpful. For kids, it's always traumatic when they have to leave their birth family, no matter what the circumstances. If it's not like if you and I were looking on the situation and said, of course, their life will be better if they leave. Kids don't ever think that way. So
interesting.
Getting in and providing any kind of support to those families as a preventative measure, I think is the biggest thing that we can do. Secondly, if you are able to provide any kind of supplies for foster care, it seems really simple, but kids in foster care don't usually have any of their own belongings. And in some families, they're strapped financially. They may be able to take in one more child and have one more mouth to feed, but that doesn't mean they can necessarily buy them a new bike or send them to summer camp or anything like that. And so financial support is helpful. And then we have a lot of need for respite care too. So maybe you don't want to be a parent, you're not ready for that, but you think for the weekend I could take a kid, It doesn't have to be a long-term commitment. It can be more like babysitting. we see some need for that too. Just like those short term, sometimes middle of the night placements. Sometimes it's like, the foster parents are going to a conference or something and they just can't take the kids with them. So kind of stepping in and doing some babysitting is helpful. And then just advocating, if you have friends who are thinking of starting families, just saying to them, have you thought about doing foster care? Because most of the time they haven't, or they haven't really explored it. So just bringing it up and having it be kind of more normalized is super helpful.
I've heard stories of kids in our region who, they go to school, they don't even see it coming, and then they get, they get told, hey, you're not going home. Like,
exactly.
Mom, dad, whoever is not there, and we're taking you somewhere else. I can't even imagine. I cannot even imagine being a teenager with all the other crap you're dealing with.
Being a teenager isn't hard enough already.
Oh
right?
My God. Or even elementary school where you're still just trying to figure out the world, and then that happens.
It's heartbreaking at any age. People think that it's easier for newborns, but how do you explain to a newborn why their mom isn't there anymore? You can't. So actually there's studies that have said that it's toughest on newborns, and as the kids get older and older, the separation itself becomes less traumatic. Now, on the flip side, if you have a 17-year-old, they may have been living with all kinds of chaos and possibly neglect and abuse and whatever for 17 years. So the truth is that nobody gets out of the foster care system without scars and bruises, emotionally. So it's tough no matter what. And just being there to support those kids who have been going through a lot is really, really meaningful.
Do you watch This Is Us at all?
I don't.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a conversation for another day, but there's a family in that show that goes through the foster care process, and I was going to ask if that's accurate, the depiction, but it seemed accurate. And I guess the short version of where I'm going with this is it seems like there was a real struggle, and you kind of articulated this a little bit before, but between the foster parents trying to do what's best, they think they're maybe the best for the child, but the child, this case a teenager, doesn't care how destructive the lifestyle is at home, wants to go home instead.
Yeah. Home is home. Home's a
home.
really powerful thing.
Yeah.
It really is. We've been, I don't know if it's lucky, but it's just been our experience that the kids that have been with us have never been close to going home. There's never been like trial visits or anything like that. And so with our girls, they were really in foster care. I say it like they all were, but with the girls, they were still having visits with their parents when we first started visiting with them. We were asked after about 6 months whether we'd consider adopting, but it took another year after that before the parents had surrendered their rights. And so for 18 months, we were living with these girls who had our whole hearts, and they could have gone back. It was very possible. And I don't even know how you do it, but you have to kind of just love those kids and know that being with their birth parents, if it can be safe, is the best thing for them.
Yep.
It's tough.
Yep.
With Brian, he had already been free for adoption for a while, and so
Brian is the third child that you now adopted.
The last piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
So with him, he was never going anywhere but with us, so it was a whole different experience. And, some of the reason why we chose to do it that way is we didn't want to put the girls through that. We didn't want them to have possibly a little brother and then have him go away somewhere. And so we were kind of intentional with looking for a child who there wasn't that legal risk there.
That's so interesting. It's so interesting. And that is arguably your second story of gumption. I mean, obviously it's about the children and finding what's best for them, but knowing that you want a family and trying to navigate that.
Yeah.
Whew.
It takes
that
some
must
real
have been
soul searching.
Yeah.
Because you're right. It's like we did this for selfish reasons. We wanted a family, and I'm cool with that. I don't feel any guilt about that at all. We wanted a family. But then the way that we got there, we had to kind of be selfless and be willing to roll with the punches. And there are a lot of punches in foster care.
Yeah.
There's a lot of disappointments. There's a lot of miscommunications. And while kids are in care, they've got the social worker and then the commissioner of social services, and they're the guardians. You're not the guardian, even though you've got this kid with you day in and day out, and you know what's going to make them cry, and you know what they like for dinner, and all these really intimate things about them, and they're your child. They're not really while they're in care.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of put yourself second, and I think that it's good training to be a parent anyway, because that's what you do anyway when you have a kid. Is what they need is first, no matter what. That's paramount. So you're kind of forced into it, especially with foster care.
You mentioned there's a 30-hour course, a test, or
there's no test.
Okay, all right. So I could pass.
Yeah.
I'm still not there yet. But anybody who's listening that might be on the fence, what's after that?
So they call it a mutual selection process. So you spend 30 hours with people from Department of Social Services taking this class. They're also going to come out to the house and interview you. They'll ask for recommendations, family and friends who can kind of speak to your character. And at the end, they say, we think you'll be a good fit, or we don't think you're going to be a good fit. And so there's no written test, but they do make a judgment as to whether it's going to work out or not. And then you get placed on this list. And so we graduated from our class in December. And from December until April, I think my phone was within like 6 inches of me the whole time. Like when I was in the shower, when I was sleeping, like
waiting for that phone, call.
The ringer was all the way up. I was just, it was like being 9 months pregnant for like 4 months, except for maybe a little bit less physically uncomfortable.
Yeah, a little less
but
bloating,
I wasn't sleeping.
maybe.
Yeah, maybe not. I was stress eating a little bit. So.
Nice.
So maybe not, but we waited and waited and waited, and it got to April, and we finally got a phone call. We've got these 2 little girls for you, and they'll be at your house at like 5:00 tonight. I thought, oh my God, it's happening. Our family's here.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So it gets to like 6:00 that night, and we get another call, and they say, the girls aren't coming today. Sorry. You're going to have to wait till they go back to court, and maybe next week. And so we're like, okay, that's fine. We, went out and bought some cute pajamas and some baby wipes and all that stuff. We got all ready. And then the next week came, and they were like, no, it's not happening today. And so,
oh my God.
Yeah. So after waiting for all that time, we waited another 2 months worth of Wednesdays when they were in family court waiting for the girls to come. We had gotten to the point where I was so attached. Like all I knew was their names. It's like Ayana and Athena. They are my kids. I didn't have any pictures. I didn't have any backstory, but like they were in my heart. It was real. And we got to the last day. It was June 18th, and they said if they don't come today, they're not coming. We're like, okay, all right.
Oh boy.
And so I had kind of already gotten myself ready for that and said it's just not meant to be for whatever reason. It's going to be okay. Well, we finally got a call around 3:00 that day. I was actually driving down to Glens Falls. I pulled over, sobbed, and then got back and came home. And they finally got there, and they're just perfect little girls, and we've had a blast with them ever since.
How was that first interaction? I bet that was tough.
It was
because again, what have they gone through before they showed up? You're ready, but were they ready?
No, they had no idea what was going on. So
how old were they?
Athena was 17 months and Ayana was 3.5.
Oh, wow. So they were real little.
Yeah. But Ayana is actually like an 85-year-old woman in a little body. And so she was like completely alert, completely with it the whole time. So she came in and was just like ready to roll. She had been this kind of happens a lot with kids in foster care. She
Mm-hmm.
had walked through a lot of different strangers' houses before. It was like no big deal for her.
It was normal.
Mm-hmm. And Athena just kind of clung right to me, and we went out and had pizza and bought the right size diapers. And that night, Ayana went to bed like nothing. Athena slept right on my chest, and it was good from there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And eventually you were able to adopt.
2 years and a month later.
Wow.
It took a long time to get through the whole legal process, and it's taking even longer now because so many families are affected by substance abuse issues. And so it's a little different. Like if somebody just can't function, then that's probably not going to change very much over the course of time. And so that can be a faster process. But when there's somebody who's got substance abuse issues, the state's trying really, really hard to get them back on track and then get them to the point where they can parent. So it's almost like a two-step process. And so kids are staying in care a lot longer now before adoptions.
Yeah, we had a presentation today. It happened to, we had a Rotary meeting today, and John Bernardi showed us his documentary for the Spark Coalition.
Oh, how was it?
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. And of course, there's people I know very well in that video, close friends sharing their stories, and they're directly affected by it. And it's like,
It's
I've
everywhere.
heard those stories from them directly, but then you're just sitting in that room, like seeing how real it is again and again. And like, it's so funny because I'll be the first to admit this. That is an issue I totally recognize is just crushing our communities. But in my day-to-day, I don't think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I'm trying to train myself to think about it so I can do what I can to help.
Right.
But
it's not very visible, even though it's so prevalent
the
around here.
opioid
It's really not that
epidemic
visible.
and drugs and alcoholism and everything. I mean, the documentary was phenomenal, though. And so my point of bringing that up, though, is, I feel like I sort of got an elevator pitch version. It was like maybe a 35-minute video of what's happening to a lot of these kids' parents.
Mm-hmm.
One story in the video was a mother, and you could not do anything but sympathize for her when she told her story about her struggle to get her child back.
Yeah. It's powerful stuff.
It's like, holy smokes, the worlds are colliding here. And you're like, there's the Hannah Provost of the world who are just trying to have a family and take care of somebody. But then there's the mom in that video too. How it's like, I want my child back. It's like, and then there's the child in the middle.
Right. And we've tried really consciously to not put anyone in the middle. I mean, we've aligned ourselves really clearly with the interests of the kids, and in every case, like, we've wanted the parents to get better. When we've done respite care or short-term placements, we want those parents to get better. Like, that's the best thing for the kid. We've learned so much about how you get to that point. One of the weird things about foster care is that all of the documents that go to court, you get a copy of all of those. And so, every time we get 400 pages of the history, and you look back at what the parents had for upbringing, and you think, oh my God, you had no chance. Like, I couldn't have overcome that. How could we expect you to do anything better about it? So it really, it puts a human face on things, and it lets you realize that some people have huge advantages in this world, and some are just, it's hard. It's hard to come out of it. And there's lots of good stories of people coming out of very rough situations, and more power to them. But I think those of us who have the privilege of kind of having our lives together can do more to really help empower those people and give them a hand up. Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about do more. I mean, in the spirit of this, like, what are the organizations that someone could volunteer for to help? Maybe like prep backpacks or little things like that. What are some of those organizations locally that do that work?
First of all, John Bernardi, United Way of the Adirondacks. You can't go wrong, and you can't say no to John. So I walked in there again, like not really ready to take on any kind of leadership role in the community, and said I want to help. And he put me on the allocations committee. And so, essentially, after we've raised all that money, we have to go out and spend it. And the United Way is an incredible steward of that money and has a community group that goes through every organization's financials. They have to explain you were part of that process.
I remember being
Yes.
one of those.
Yeah, and we're
and
tough.
always hoping for just a little bit more to help the kids at summer camp.
Exactly.
But admittedly, kids going to summer camp, versus kids needing foster support, I get it.
There's no right answer.
There's
it
there's
really
no
takes
right
a
answer, but
patchwork
man,
because
that's tough.
yeah, but putting kids in summer camp can give them that positive trajectory so that they never need any of the other services.
True.
So one's really
True.
not more important than the other.
Absolutely.
We have to
Absolutely.
attack it from all angles. So the United Way will put you to work, get you involved immediately, and your time will always be well spent, I feel. I think that John's very conscious of people's time and money and makes sure that they're both spent very, very well.
I hope he's listening because I
Hey,
spoke.
John.
Yeah, hey John. I spoke to you today. Remember, you said you're going to come on the podcast, so we'll see.
Oh, great.
We'll see
He'll
if
be a
he
great
does.
one. Yeah.
But
Do it, John.
I'm putting it out there. I'm putting it out there to the world. I had a conversation with you, so we'll see what happens.
Hold
but-
him to it.
Yeah. No, I think him and his team and the network that they are leveraging is phenomenal for our area.
Unparalleled.
Yeah.
Another one that's really exciting is the MHAB project. And so,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Carpenter and Betsy Vicencio really have their heart in it. I met with Betsy a couple weeks ago to figure out how we can get some more financial literacy for the residents of MHAB. And for those who don't know, it's kind of like a clean living community. Not quite a halfway house, but close to it. So great repurposing of the old Clinton Community College dorms, and I think a really positive thing for our community. And so they're trying to get people to bring their talents into that organization and say, how can we help make these people's lives better? How can we put them on that positive trajectory? So getting involved that way. You mentioned the backpack program. I was involved with that for a little bit. They will all around the region send home backpacks worth of food for the weekend. I mean, it's as simple as that.
JCEO, or I'm thinking of a different. There's a
in
few
Plattsburgh,
backpack programs that you can find probably.
In Plattsburgh, it's JCEO. There's one started here at Peru Elementary. They're out in Malone. They're all over the place now. It's kind of spread like wildfire, and that's a program that the regional food bank has kind of piloted. And so, if it's not available in your area, what an impact to start one for your school system. So there's lots of different ways that you can just make these small changes that make someone's life better. Like, what could be greater than that? What greater feeling is there? The Minor Institute in the last couple of years does these team building kind of exercises, and they'll buy a couple of bikes that are disassembled, and then they'll race to safely and accurately put these bikes together, and then they get given to kids in foster care. So
no way. I had no idea.
It's so cool.
That's awesome.
It's so fun to see. There's so many ways in this region, and I think all over. I mean, call the United. If you're not in the North Country, call the United Way near you. Look for like a volunteerism center. There's so many different ways to get involved, and it's just, I don't know, it just leaves you feeling good and knowing you did something.
The United Way serves as a great conduit for that stuff. And I know the United Way, Hickok and Boardman, my employers, is very active with the Vermont United Way, and like just seeing the impact the United Ways across the country are having, it's good. So,
my partner Andy explained it really well. It's kind of as though the United Way is looking out throughout the community, and it's spring in the North Country. There's lots of potholes, right? So it's almost like the United Way is going around with just a truckload of tar and trying to fill the deepest potholes first. We're really lucky to have it. It's almost like insurance for the North Country to have this organization that can be very flexible and take whatever that need is out there and just take care of it. Just do it. Like, no red tape, no bureaucracy. Just, we see the need and we're going to do something about it.
Why I love Plattsburgh, and I think why my wife loves Plattsburgh, and maybe even why I'm going to guess maybe why you love Plattsburgh is sort of we're just big enough where things are clicking. There's a lot going on, but we're just small enough where the opportunity to engage, if you want to engage, if you want to be a volunteer, your opportunity to sit down with somebody like John Bernardi or Michelle LeBeau at the hospital or Mike Carpenter. I mean, these people have made themselves so approachable.
Yep.
And I think our community is very special in that way because if you really want to get involved, you can. And I think that's where...
Even if you don't really want to get involved, you're going to get roped in.
Yeah. We will find you and we will rope you in. No, this is going to sound kind of egotistical, and I really don't intend it to be this way. But when I go out to dinner with my family or I go out to an event, they're always joking and they're saying, Ryan, you're the mayor of Plattsburgh.
Oh my gosh. Yes. My friend Nikki, who comes to visit, will say the exact same thing.
To you?
To me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Hannah, you're the mayor.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going out to dinner with the mayor because you always run into people. You can't go anywhere without seeing people you know.
But they're not, it's not people that you just like, oh, hey, man, like you're a friend. It's like people that you're doing work with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're volunteering.
People that you're impressed with.
Yes.
Who you look up to.
Yes. And I think that's just a beauty of the area we live is if you really want to engage, volunteer, and network, there are so many opportunities to do that here.
Doors are open.
You go down to a big city somewhere, and I just feel like you're going to struggle to get the same level of connectivity that you can get here.
And I think that's really a cultural thing that's specific to Plattsburgh. I mean, there are a lot of small towns, too, where you can't get anyone to open the door for you because you're not from there, or you are from there, but you're from the wrong family. I think Plattsburgh is really unique in that, and that's something that I noticed right away, that there's nobody who's too good to go to lunch with you or return your call. If you have a purpose for getting in touch with somebody, they will get back to you. People are just very open. I think that everybody's really, there's a sense of being on the same team, and like everybody's looking to try to advance the causes of this area, and they're doing it together. It's really neat.
Yep. I 100%, 120% agree. And honestly, 80 KYP is where it all started for me. And, joining that first board meeting with you there as president, I was like, wow, I'm gonna stick around here. I'm gonna learn something. And from there, it went to the next thing.
That's a big compliment coming from like the Boy Scout program where he would become an Eagle Scout already. So I take that as a very high compliment.
Yes, thank you. I've talked on many different podcasts with friends and stuff about my experience in scouting, and that, certainly has been life-changing for me. And I've said this before too, but I think the one thing that scouting did for me that a lot of other things like sports or music or theater or all these different clubs that I was involved with, scouting did for me differently is it forced me into leadership decisions very young. Mm-hmm. Like you take just the Eagle Scout project, like for those who aren't aware, most people are, but if you're not, in order to achieve the Eagle Scout highest rank, you have to do your own service project. Oftentimes as anywhere from 14 to 17-year-old, depending on where you're at. And that's a lot to ask, let's just say 15 or 16-year-old.
Yeah.
To call up Lowe's because you want to build a playground and you got to figure out how to get it for free or pay for it if you're going to have to pay for it and
most
fundraising.
15-year-olds don't even want to talk to any adult, much less ask them for a bunch of free materials.
Yeah, so thank you for the compliment, but that's just a testament to that program and the privilege that I had of my dad being super engaged and supporting me. If he didn't kick me in the rear end a few times, I probably wouldn't have made it either. But that's his love for me, recognizing that as a valuable thing that I would get.
Right.
Yep. I feel like we talked in the beginning about I remember, when you were president of ADKYP, like 2013-ish, and then shortly thereafter, you went on just like a tear of like, I'm in charge. Not I'm in charge, but like jokingly kinda.
I was pretty involved. Yeah.
Like
I was
you were the
everywhere
mayor
for a while.
you were the mayor of Plattsburgh. I mean, volunteer of the year, not business person of the year, but volunteer of the year for the Chamber of Commerce. For those who aren't aware, our chamber is legit, and you got that award. That's crazy. And then you got Woman of Distinction for the Girl Scouts the year later. It's like
for that one I cannot explain, but I was very humbled by it. For the chamber, I mean, that was, you talked a little bit with Steve Frederick about cold calling. I leaned right into cold calling, but I had to do it my way. So working with the bank and being new to the community, I knew I needed to meet a ton of people. And I knew that I did not want to call them and talk about checking accounts or the commercial loan rate this month or, FDIC limits. Not interested. I was just like, I kind of thought like, would I want to get that phone call? Absolutely not. And so I didn't do that. Instead, I engaged with the chamber and figured out everything that they have going on and just kept raising my hand. I mean, that was really a lot of my success during that time, was just raising my hand over and over and over again. So kind of whenever Jody Parks, who is a phenomenal organizer, has so much spirit, she's wonderful. Whenever she needed something, I just said yes for a long time, 3 or 4 years that I was just saying yes. I was part of the JCEO Community Action Angels during that time. I was donating platelets. I was everywhere, just like everything that I could do, I was trying to say yes to. And lots of time with ADKYP, as you know. You've now put in, I think, more time than I did, but at the time it was a labor of love. And
I feel like everybody at ADKYP looks at me like I'm the grandpa now. I don't know.
It's fast. It's funny how quick that happens.
Yeah. I mean, well, if you consider the average tenure of that organization, maybe 2 years, right? I think maybe, I don't know. I've seen a lot of people come and go since I've come. Right. And
you're like the Warren Buffett. You're just like the old guy in the corner that knows it all.
I think that organization, not to just keep, talking about ADKYP, but I think that organization does a lot of good. And, when I had the opportunity to become president 3 years ago, I think it was the right time. Yeah. And now it's the right time for someone else to get inspired and make it their own.
It's almost like an incredible leadership building course.
Yeah.
That you don't pay for, but it's also not free. You have to work really, really hard for it.
Yeah. And, it's tough because, like, obviously when you're a young person, you probably, odds are, until you are hit your late 20s, I think, you're probably still searching for that epiphany moment. Like we talked about at the beginning of the podcast of like, I just made it. I figured this out. Yeah. I found the job that I want. And when you're trying, most people are engaging with ADKYP, they're in that process. And because of that, they get pulled in all sorts of different life-changing directions. And their passion is there for the mission of ADKYP, attracting and retaining young people to the area. What are you going to do if you get your perfect job opportunity that doesn't allow you to do that anymore for whatever reason? Right. And so the organization's turnover is tough. Somehow I've managed to,
but that's part of what makes it great.
Persevere through that, and I've hung on through some low times, low times, where I thought we had like the all-star team board, and then everybody had to leave, and I was stuck. But
think about how that's prepared you going forward.
Oh, yeah.
The stakes may have seemed high at the time, but looking back on it, it's like, okay, so ADKYP falls apart. Like, so what? Now you're on your own, really. Like, you're creating a business within a business.
Yep.
And the stakes are much higher, and you know how to get through those low times because you've done it. Like, we think about this a lot as parents. We try to make opportunities for our kids to fail when the stakes are, like, really low, right? Like, so this past week, I don't think she'd like me telling the story, but I'm going to tell it anyway.
Yes. Yes. These are always the best ones.
My 9-year-old had her first ever sleepover birthday party, right? It was so important to her. It was just a huge deal. And it went great. She, made her way through it, and she got all these presents. So one of them was this huge container of slime. So if you have kids in that age range, like, slime is a big deal. I don't know how it got to be such a big deal, but it is a big deal.
I think slime was cool when I was 9.
We had like oobleck, like remember the cornstarch and water?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Best craft project ever.
Oh my gosh. Awesome.
Ever.
So I guess I do get it. So she decides yesterday that she wants to have that slime right now, and she just like wasn't listening to us. And I threw it away. It was like, I'm that
you
parent.
threw away the
I
slime?
threw it away in the garbage.
You couldn't just like put it on the counter for a while and it's done.
It's gone.
It's
gone. Like once the disrespect comes out and once the poor decisions come out, it's just gone. And we have moments like that, as time goes on. It's like, you know what? I'd rather take away her slime than have to take away her car later, or take away, I'm not paying for college or something like that. You want to really let people fail as much as they can as the stakes are low, so that they get it. And then when the stakes are high, it's like, well, I've been here before. I already know what to do.
Amy Kretzer talked about that, but more of
She's such a rock star.
She is. Amy, you listening?
She's listening.
Yeah, you're a rock star. But the falling out of a tree versus, Johnny, that limb's too thin. Don't go there.
Right. We can't do it for our kids. And kind of the same thing with young professionals. If you have somebody in your office that you're mentoring or anything like that, you have to let them fail. That's the only way you learn. I mean, the best things in my life have come from failures. And that's when you really get into the real stuff. And when you can do soul searching and figure out, well, like that felt really bad. I'm not going to let that happen again. So I think that whenever we're in a position of either parenting or mentoring or whatever it is, you have to let that failure happen. It's so valuable.
Yep, absolutely. I'd like to shift gears slightly and give you an opportunity to tell me, because I'm interested and curious, but also the listeners, about Lamanto and Company.
Absolutely.
So this is kind of you became a partner, college dropout, fired, and now partner of a successful financial.
Bad at math? Just kidding.
Yeah, you said you didn't even like tell me about that.
I don't have a passion for math. I'm not bad at math, but I don't have any passion
for
it.
Does that need to be cut out now? Like, I'm a financial person, but
bad at math.
Yeah.
No, keep it in.
Okay. All right.
So, yeah. So I kind of had, like we said, my eureka moment when I was working for a bank. At that time, I was a business development manager and officer. So 2 big words there in the title. It was like a big deal for somebody who was 26 at the time, maybe. And I decided I really wanted to be a financial advisor. There wasn't any way to do it inside of the company that I was working for. A mutual friend introduced me to Andy, and he was looking for an assistant. And so
Andy Lamanto.
So
legend.
The man, the legend. So, we had an interview, and I made it clear from the get-go, like, I'm willing to take a step back and go from being an officer to an assistant. I'm all right with that. But I need to know that you kind of share my dream. And like, I want to be an advisor. I want to be doing this for real. I don't want to be an administrator always or be someone's sidekick. Like, I really want to do this. And he was right on board. I give him so much credit for that. He kind of saw the same vision with me to begin with, and treated me like a partner from day one. So we'd be going into meetings and introducing me to these clients that he'd spent 10 years cultivating the relationship, and would come in and say, "This is Hannah. She's my partner." And that was it. That was that. I knew nothing. I had no stake in that at all. I had no right to it yet, but he just gave it to me from day one. And so that it was really powerful for me. I learned as much as I could within the bank. It came to a point where we decided to leave the bank. Well, he left and started his own company. And then very quickly afterwards, I said, this is the person who's been teaching me and the person who sees my dream. Like, you have to cling to that when you have somebody who really believes in you. The rest works out. If you have the people around you who share your vision and who are willing to help you see it through, everything else falls into place. So
I don't know if he knows this, because I never see him. I don't know. I just don't cross paths with him very much, unfortunately. But I hold Andy in very high regard. When I was with my previous employer, you do the retirement program for them, ETS, staffing and recruiting, and can I say that?
Yeah.
Okay. So you do the program for them. You do a phenomenal job, but I wasn't in the program yet, and I was in Vermont for our branch. My mission was to help them grow their satellite branch in Vermont. And he made a trip across the lake to come see me. And I don't know who else he was going to see, or, maybe he had 10 appointments lined up. I don't know, but he did such a great job making me feel like he truly cared about me, making my future brighter,
right,
financially, and just being like, hey man, I'm not here to sell you on anything, but I'm just telling you what it's about and why I think I can help you. And that approach was just really impressive. Not to mention, he got on a ferry and went across the lake just to do that. So I'll never forget that, and I'll always remember that, even though we have Hickok and Boardman has a great retirement planning thing that I'm with now, but that's huge. That's huge. That's the kind of thing that you need. That's gumption.
It is. It really is. And we kind of talked about putting people on that upward trajectory. That's what we do with financial planning. And so we're really lucky that we have a very wide array of clients, anywhere from, we have a couple of like 16 and 17-year-olds who are just waiting for the law to be on their side to start an IRA. And we have clients in their 90s, all the way through. We get to help them make incremental improvements to their lives all the time. And that's really cool to see. It's like, it's kind of just like watching someone grow up a little bit every time. All kinds of life events happen, and there's plenty of times where our plan is off track and whatever. But we're able to reel it back in, help bring rationality to the conversation and compassion, and say, I know this is really, really hard. I'm here to help you with it. It's such a cool job. I kind of, like you said, you never, as a little girl, wanted to be a financial planner. That was not like my calling or anything like that. I think Andy was born in a suit. If you've seen Boss Baby, I think that was Andy, like reading the stock reports when he was in diapers. But I was not that person. It took me a while to get there, and I came to it, kind of fell into it backwards, and I'm so happy I did. But it's so neat to help take something that's really stressful for people and scary and turn it into something positive. Like, we know this is scary, but let's move forward. Let's keep improving your situation. I love it. I really do.
What would you say your specialty is, if you have one?
We do work a lot with retirement plans. And so we love going into a business where usually the employees would not go out on their own and hire a financial advisor. The only advice they might have gotten in the past could be from either people their age who didn't know any more than they know, or from parents or maybe even their employer, and give them access to advice. I love that. My favorite client is a preschool. They're 3 hours from here. I have to drive down to see them. They're in a low-income neighborhood, and these ladies have chosen to just help kids. Like, that's their whole mission in life, is to take kids who are 2, 3, 4 years old and give them a good start to life. Meanwhile, their finances have oftentimes been neglected, and they may feel like they're kind of in a place of despair, or a place where, retirement's just a joke to them. Like it couldn't happen. They haven't gotten prepared for it. And I get to go in and say, no, like, let's recognize all the gains that you've made in the past, and let's make a plan, and let's do it. And it's really neat. The best moment that I've had so far in my career, out of everything that I've done, was working with my mom. She, had a divorce early on. has always been a minister, and so the pay's not been great, and has always been really frugal. And a couple years ago came to me and said, can you help me figure out whether I can ever retire? She was thinking that she would literally never be able to retire, that she'd have to die on the job because she was feeling so inadequate. She felt like she could not possibly have enough. And it's not something that you can just eyeball. It's something that really has to be measured. And so I was able to measure it and say to her, Mom, you're doing great. You're going to be able to retire. This is all going to come together in a way that she never, ever thought it would happen. And just a sigh of relief on the other side of the phone when she's in Florida. Usually I do it in person. She's in Florida.
Nice.
When I could tell her, like, this is not just like a joke. Like, this will really happen. This could be reality for you. It's just amazing. She's worked so hard her whole life, and she had never been told that before, that this could happen. So
wow.
It's really neat to empower people like that. I get a huge kick out of it. It doesn't get boring to me ever.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's how I feel about my gig. So I'm super happy to hear you feel the same way about yours, because I know that's something special.
It is.
You ready for the wrap up? Rapid fire questions. Stories of Gumption podcast, rapid fire. I can't actually say that because I stole this idea from Tim Ferriss, but
nice.
He does this occasionally with his podcasts. And so the first rapid fire question, very simple. Is there a book that's changed your life? What is it and why?
I love reading. So there are a lot of books that I have like so thoroughly enjoyed. And I think just that love of reading and learning has changed my life on its own. But the book...
That's fair. You got to read.
Yeah.
People don't appreciate that enough, but you have to read or listen to audiobooks or whatever works for you.
Exactly. And so just that on its own has changed my life. But the book that I think shapes what I do every day, which is not a literary book, or I don't know if I'm even proud admitting it, a book called Parenting with Love and Logic.
Interesting.
Yeah. I'm not big on self-help books or parenting books or anything like that, but Brad and I read this book really early into our foster care journey. And it talks about giving people choices and establishing for yourself what the acceptable outcomes are before you give people choices. And so it's kind of meant to be applied for kids, but it actually works for like everyone in your life.
Because we're all just big, dumb kids.
We're all big babies. And people just like choices. And if you establish for yourself first, like these, first of all, having the mindset that there's more than one acceptable outcome to you is huge. Like right there, your life has become better because if there's A, B, and C, all of them are okay. So if you're already in that mindset, like life is good. If you're then able to say to somebody that you're in a relationship with or working with or your child, I trust you enough to make a decision about this, and I'm truly going to be okay with whatever you choose, then they're happy. All of a sudden you've empowered them and told them that you love them and you trust them and do what you think. So that's one that like every day pretty much I use that.
That's great. What's it called again?
Parenting with Love and Logic.
Parenting with Love and Logic. Interesting. I like it. Question number 2. What advice would you give your 17-year-old self, knowing what you know now?
Don't rest on your laurels. So yeah, my 17-year-old self, like things were really good. And things are great now. I mean, I'm really lucky to have gone through a couple different phases, but just don't think that you have your whole life planned out, and be ready for what comes, because it's all good.
I like
one way
that.
Or the other.
I like that. I heard from our conversation before that you had listened to a few of the episodes before you got here. So you may have stumbled upon my number 1 question, the board of directors question.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm not going to let you pick. I'm going to change it. I'm going to change it so it's a true rapid fire. you can't pick a celebrity or a famous person, but I think you can handle this one.
Okay.
Real life,
Oh,
right
no.
now,
Okay.
currently, who are your 3 board of directors?
Wow. I'm really lucky that I really do have a board of directors.
I
It's
knew
really
it.
cool.
Yeah, I knew it. I knew it. Yeah.
And I don't know if I can narrow it to 3, but I'll keep it brief. So, my husband is just, Brad keeps me honest and keeps challenging me all the time. And I so appreciate that about him. And he's been amazing to go on the parenting journey with. My sister listens to me over the most inane things. The other day, I accidentally had a turbo shot in my coffee, and it sent me on a caffeine just like bender for the whole day. And she listened to me complain for the whole day about what a bad choice I had made. My mom is like just always so supportive and has other ideas of how to get through things. My partner, Andy, is just so smart. He's just so smart. Like there's nothing I can throw at him that he doesn't have some crazy insight on.
It's important to, sorry, I interrupted you.
No, go
but
right ahead.
I'll interject and just say, I mean, it's so important to have a mentor
Yes.
that truly mentors.
A champion.
Yes.
Is I think what you really need.
You look at this person and you're like, I want to be just like that person.
Right.
Maybe better, but if I can be just like them and they show me the way, Yoda, like I can.
Yeah. And I think not just one person. Like, so another person is my friend Mary, who, but she's like shown me what it is to be a professional woman and how to forge your own way and make room for yourself at the table. I think with mentors, you're really lucky if you can find 2 or 3 people and pick out the things from them that you want to learn and then forge your own way too. Last one is my friend Nikki. She is just amazing. She bought her own farm like 5 years ago and has shown me how to be an entrepreneur and go through the tough times and ride on the highs and just kill it. She's awesome. So I'm really lucky. I've got like a great team that I can call on.
Awesome. That's awesome. Well, this has been a fantastic conversation. What, you're going to get back into the volunteering thing? You're going to take over the world again sometime soon, or?
I think so. I'm trying to see what my next step is. I've been really lucky to be working very intensely with the United Way in the last couple of years, and John just uses my time so well that it's hard to go anywhere else.
That's at the, what was it, the annual dinner, the running joke I think Billy Jones used was, you can't tell John no.
You can't. I've tried. It's impossible. Yeah.
You can't. It's
because
true.
He's asking from such a good place. I mean, I hope that's me. If we're talking about people we want to emulate, like John Bernardi and Kathy Snow for different reasons.
Yep.
They're full of light. Like they just emanate goodness.
Yep. I wholeheartedly agree. Well, Hannah, thank you so much for being on the 8th episode of the Stories of Gumption podcast. You definitely have gumption. That's for sure.
Likewise.
In more ways than one. It's been awesome talking to you, and maybe we'll have you on again.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Just a reminder, everybody, we are sponsored by Open Gate Farmstead. If you want some eggs and you haven't had any of their eggs before, they're fantastic. And just let them know. Reach out on Facebook or Instagram. Check out their YouTube and let them know you heard about them from the Gumption podcast. And they'll give you $1 off your first eggs. They're worth it. They really are. And we are also sponsored by Kavanaugh Realty. Reach out to Galen Trombley on Facebook. He also has his podcast. But Kavanaugh Realty, really appreciate their support of the Stories of Gumption podcast as well. Until next time, everybody, have a good one.